Welcome to the game.
Alright folks, welcome back to the channel for another Blackwater Gulch painting. This time we're doing Van Dyke, our third member from the Unsung gang. Thought I'd take you through the whole process of basing and everything, and for this guy I went ahead and based him first. Normally you see me do the bases afterwards, but thought I would go ahead and try something a little different. Anyway, I use super glue because it dries faster, but just be careful with it. You especially want to make sure you get it over the slot, the metal part that's in there. And if any of it seeps through, which most likely does, make sure you clean it off the bottom as soon as possible, because once that super glue dries super hard, it's a nightmare to get off. Once the sand is dry, I just use the Black Templar contrast to make the sand black. If you've seen the other bases, I kind of go for a rocky grayish black terrain, just because it looks cool. I like it. So anyway, I use the Black Templar to get the sand done. Okay, a little trick that I started with the contrast paints that I wanted to share. Take some of the gray sear, since that's what he's primed with, and spread it out on your palette. Might take a couple coats to get it there. And there's about 6, 7, 8 different contrast paints that are brown, and to see how they're going to look, I just take a little bit of each one and spread it on top of that so you can see it. So I've got 6 of them here, and the Gilliman Flesh, the Agaros Dunes, which we will actually use later, Skeleton Horde, the Snakebite Leather, which is one of my favorites, Gore Grunt Fur, and a Hasdrake Yellow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a couple swipes with the brush on each one, and we're going to let it dry. And this way you can kind of get an idea of how this paint is going to look on your model. It's not perfect, but at least give you an idea of the color and the different tones from where it, because it's going to pool a little bit as you put it on your palette versus on your model. It doesn't pool as much. It's just because it's the flat surface. But you know, it's helped me a lot, especially when I'm using different colors that are very similar, to see which ones I like better. And make sure you keep your paint pots in the same order if you don't label. But anyway, that's what they look like when they're dry. So I've got 6 different browns out there. Now I can kind of choose which ones I want to use for different things. But of course, snakebite leather, as we are in the Old West, and most of the stuff was leather. So I'm going to start with his chaps over his jeans, and then I'm going to do his vest afterwards. Not really sure why I did it in that order, but anyway. Again, when you're using the contrast paints, just make sure that you don't overload your brush. You know, make sure you put it on the palette. Don't dip straight into the pot, or you will come out with too much unless you're wiping it off on the sides. But you know, you get the point. Just get enough on there. Get it on. If you need more, go back and add it quickly. Once it starts to dry and you add more, you'll just make it darker. Okay, Ultramarines Blue is what I'm going to use for his jeans. Now, you only have jeans in the 2 spots, here on his rear end and on the front. It's just where the chaps don't cover his jeans. Everything else is covered. So again, just using the Ultramarines Blue here because it makes a nice blue jean color. All right, again, back with the snakebite leather, we're going to do his vest. You know, so I just start in one area, cover it, work your way around the model. Again, don't get too much. Do it in sections. Make sure you get it covered, and slowly work your way around. For this particular model, he's got a kerchief up around his neck, so you want to be real careful when you get around that. If you do touch it, you have the Gray Sear base paint, so once it's all dry, you can go back and touch up. White, a different white, yet it was handy. Actually going to do his shirt in white and really not going to do a whole lot else to it. So make sure your paint is, thin and flows, and the only parts of his shirt are the arms, and there's a little bit poking out underneath the vest right above where his belt's going to be, so you don't want to miss that part either. But again, be very careful around the vest where you've already painted the contrast, because it will be kind of a pain to go back and fix that. But if you do get it on there, then just make sure you let it dry and then go back and lightly touch it up. Now again, trying out some of the different browns that we have, Grunt to fur, we're going to do on the belt. Rather than a snakebite leather, I thought we'd try a darker brown for the belt just to give it a little bit of contrast. Be very careful around the white shirt that you painted where it's sticking out of the back. But just, make sure you have a good tip on your brush. This is just a layer brush that I use. Citadel layer brush, but any layer brush will work. Just make sure you have a good point on the end. All right, barbarian flesh. It's a little brighter than the tanned flesh, and again, it's for the flesh. Both arms and his face. Pretty straightforward. Again, as always, if you haven't watched the other videos, make sure your paint is not super thick. If you need to add just a touch of water to it, just to make sure it flows well. A couple of thin coats is better than trying to glob it all on in one shot. Drake yellow. It's kind of a orangish yellow. Anyway, thought it would be a good for his hair. Kind of a dirty blonde look to his hair. Now he happens to have a mustache and a beard, so make sure you get those as well. All right, back to the Grunt to fur. decided on this color for the gun. So the wooden stock of his shotgun will be Grunt of fur. Again, just trying to mix up the browns a little bit. All right, the standard Army Painter gunmetal. Gunmetal for the gun. Barrel of the shotgun and the canteen on his right hip. Don't over glob it on, just put some on your brush and paint it on. Be careful around the hands. I mean, the standard place is to just take your time, go a little slow. Blood Angels Red, one of my favorite contrast paints, mainly because it's the one I tend to use for all my reds. For his kerchief, maybe I'll use a different color on the next kerchief. I don't know. We'll see. Again, be careful because you're painting next to skin and next to the brown. So again, don't overload the tip of that brush. Agaros Dunes. Again, another one that we haven't used. I don't think I've used in this series at all. But anyway, I thought it would be good for his hat. Little bit lighter colored brown. I thought it would, give it a nice tannish yellow colored hat. Anyway, I thought it looked good. All right, our dark wash, and this is going to be for the metal, for the gun metal, the barrel of the gun, and the canteen. It's really the only places you need this one. And of course the flesh wash to cover the skin. You can go as light as you dark or as dark as you want with this stuff. I tend to go a little lighter, except for around the eyes. I don't paint the eyes. We paint to a tabletop 3-foot distance, and you can't see eyes from that distance. And if you can, you got way better eyesight than I do. So I just use the flesh wash to help darken the eyes in, and they look good from 3 feet. All right, ash gray. I'm going to do some dry brushing here, which I haven't really talked about in this series, but it's how I do the bases. I use the ash spray, and I just use an Army Painter dry brush. Stiff bristles. Put some on your paint, get a paper towel. You're going to wipe most of it off if you've not seen how dry brushing works. Sounds kind of silly, but you're going to wipe most of it off, and then very quickly draw it over that rough surface, and you can see it start to pull it out. I usually do a light one first to kind of get the gray all over the place, and then I'll do a little heavier in certain areas to really bring out the gray. But simple dry brush, and again, it just helps make it look like a rocky surface. AntiShine, this is how I protect them. Normally I take them out and spray them, but it usually, by the time I get to this part, it's either dark outside or it's been raining like crazy here in South Texas. So brush it on, be careful because this stuff does bubble and it will stay bubbled. The bubbles don't just magically disappear. So as you're moving it around, if it starts to froth, wipe some off your brush and poke those air bubbles. It's important because you don't want air bubbles to dry. It will. I don't know why it does that. It just does. I like the spray better, but when it's dark or rainy outside, this is what we got. And make sure you let that dry. You don't want to touch that, get fingerprints into your sealant. All right, and to complete the base, I usually pull a couple of tufts off, and I try to use these to hide any imperfections in the base itself. Like, for example, after this guy was sealed, I noticed after he was painted there's a slight hole where you could kind of see through the base, or it was actually more like a little indentation where it was unlevel. So a little super glue, a little grass tuft over it, and voila, you can't see it anymore. Don't overdo it with the grass. You can use different colors. Again, I'm going for Old West, muddy, dark terrain. Um, just a couple on there, make it look good. Super glue to hold him down, and he's done. Let's take a look at the final product. There you go. Again, from a distance, I'm not winning any awards with this. That's not the point. I'm just trying to get them painted and on the table so we can have some fun with them. But for a quick paint job, it works. Anyway, I hope this helps. Hope you liked it. Please subscribe, hit that like button. Let us know what you think. Again, I'm not winning any awards here. I'm just going for quick tabletop, standards. Anyway, thanks for watching.